editor in journal. The journal is Elite Journal. Elite is an abbreviation for English literature, language and literature. And now, Dr. Giulia Magazzù is a professor for English linguistic and translation in University of Rome for Tor Vergata, Italy. It's a big university in Rome. And I know that Rome has a very distinguished linguistic analysis. As I myself study hegemony based on the linguistics from a famous Gramsci. He is a theorist and also an activist. And then he has a theory, a very famous theory called hegemony. I would like to show you that Dr. Giulia Magazzu's education is in 2020, got his PhD in English Studies in University of Rome from her own university. TV series, multilingualism in TV series, and also Magister on Philosophy in Teaching English Language and Literature, and also another Master in Philosophy in Audiovisual Translation, and MA in Translation Studies, major in English and Russia. And also here we can see there are a lot of seminar and lecture, and there is also teaching in English. So she got a lot of experience in teaching English from 2017 until 2020, and doing research, I think a lot of research group. I cannot read it. Oh yeah, Hieronymus Translation Study Research Group, and got professional society members in European Translation Studies, Association Italian in Linguistic, Angli Linguistic, European Society for Study of English. So I think this is very potential to us as an English department. This is a kind of a gate if you want to know a lot of about, association is really needed in our department, right? For European Society's study of English and European Translation study of association, probably we can learn from that. And there are a lot of research. I cannot mention this one. This is, let's see some of the research here. Conference and research on international marketing, advertisement, TV, what else? Audiovisual, and many things. Multilingual TV, all about translation. So I hope this will inspire us to think more on translation here and to correlate with the translation also in Indonesia. And this is very inspiring. Refugee not welcome, ideology articulation on media discourse, migrant refugee in Europe. And there are also many refugee in Indonesia, right? So here we are. And today, let me first find. Wait a minute. Today, Dr. Giulia Magazzù are going to share her opinion on, where is the title? Here, Audiovisual Translation Between Tradition and Innovation. So please welcome here Dr. Giulia Magazzù. If you have, this is already open, so you can share what you can.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the generous introduction. I deal, yes, with translation studies, mainly audiovisual translation, as you will see today. But I'm also interested in discourse analysis, as you mentioned, for example, my study on the representation of migrants. You know that immigration is an important issue in Europe and especially in Italy. So I'm interested in both fields, actually. And my next lecture, as you know, will be on the other side. So if you are interested in anything, of course, you can ask me. The students, of course, can ask me and contact me. I wanted to share a presentation, but I don't have the share tool. I don't know if probably because I'm not the authorized one. Oh, now I see it. Okay, fine. Now I see it. Now you should. Let me see if okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes? Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna open it. If you have, I don't know, if you don't understand something that I say, if you want to stop me, if you want to interrupt me, please do to clarify things, or if you prefer, we can leave the questions and you tell me what do you prefer. So today I'm gonna deal with audiovisual translation, as I said. Of course, there is a lot to say, but today I will focus. I don't know how much are you in audiovisual translation. How much do you know about it? Anyway, I will try to do an excursus on audiovisual translation, especially on the main modes of audiovisual translation. Okay, so sorry. So the key points I will analyze today. So what are the different modes and what distinguishes one mode from one another? The so-called hybrid approaches, so mixed modes in audiovisual translation, the paraverbal elements, which are very important in translation in general, but especially in audiovisual translation. And also how we will see how these different modes can alter, can change the composition of an audiovisual text. So first of all, let's see what are AVT modes. So AVT modes are the different sound or image editing technologies through which an audiovisual text displays the verbal and paraverbal elements of its translated version. So each mode comes to fruition by virtue of a specialized set of processes involving an individual work, of course, and different degrees of a complex teamwork. And later I will tell you something about what there is behind a translation. I don't know how it works in Indonesia, but probably you will tell me later. So if you watch movies that originally were in another language, in English or other languages, I don't know if you can have a translation in your language. So in order to translate a film or a documentary or also video game, there is a lot of work behind. So there is not only one person doing that, but there is a big team doing that. And so we will see how different modes of AVT affect an AV translator's job. So we will see also how AV translators will specialize in one specific field. So we have several specializations, okay? So usually translators typically focus on a specific mode. For example, they focus just on dubbing or on subtitling, just to mention two of the many modes that exist. Also, we have a continuous development in technology and social practices. So we have new modes emerging. Okay, so in the past, at the very beginning, we just had dubbing, and then other modes emerged. And as I already said, the workflow is very complex. So each mode requires different processes and different teams and different team structures. So AVT modes can be categorized according to how they are perceived or how they reach the public, the audience, through the audio or visual channel text, or both. So we have revoicing, that refers to all the AVT modes whose translated words are ultimately spoken to be perceived by being heard in the AV text. Captioning, it is a sort of umbrella term that refers to translations perceived through reading as a complement to audio and or visual content. Sign language. Sign language interpreting is the AVT mode that is seen on screen and spoken through visual signs. So, for example, for hard of hearing people. And then we have remake. Remake is the AVT mode that is perceived as a different or new AV production rather than just editing the sound or the picture. And we have different modes within revoicing and captioning, okay? So this is a chart, a table to summarize them. So we have the visual editing, where we have the captioning, which is read, and the sign language, which is seen, of course. In the audio editing, we have the revoicing. So, for example, dubbing, which is heard, or the voiceover. We will see what voiceover is. And then in the filmmaking, we have a remake, which is perceived as new, as a new audiovisual translation, okay? Each approach affects how viewers perceive, of course, the translated content and its relationship to the original. So let's talk about revoicing, the revoicing modes. So we have the dubbing, which is replacing, basically consists in replacing the original track of a film's source language dialogues with another track on which translated dialogues have been recorded in the target language. Then we have voiceover. In voiceover, which is used, for example, in documentaries, or, well, for example, in Europe, Eastern Europe countries use voiceover. For example, Russia, Poland, they use voiceover. In voiceover, we have the original audio, which remains audible even if the volume is lowered. And we have the translation that plays at higher volume. We have a person, just one person, reading the translated dialogues. It is, of course, very cheaper than dubbing, because we have just one person that reads the translation, the translated dialogues, and we don't have all the teamwork that we have for dubbing. So just the translated text and the person that reads the translation. So it is cheaper. That is why some countries adopt voiceover. Then we have audio description, which is the description of visual elements for blind people or visually impaired people, and other specialized forms, half dubbing, simul-sync, fan dubs, interpreting, and song translation. So you will see that there are many modes. And the captioning modes. So the written form of translation. Subtitles, standard subtitles, so text translation dialogue that appears at the bottom of the screen. Subtitles for deaf people or hard of hearing people, which are kind of different from standard subtitles, because they include dialogue plus speaker identification, so different colors. They also include the description of sounds, so they are different from standard subtitles. Then we have some specialized forms of subtitles. We have intertitles, surtitles, which are used, for example, in theaters, live subtitles, which are used, for example, during events that are streamed live. I don't know, the Oscars, for example, when they are streamed for Italian television, they are subtitled live. Fan subs and social media subtitles. And of course, we have some production tools for captioning. And we will see some examples. So, first of all, dubbing. As I said, in dubbing, we replace the original dialogue track with translated dialogue in the target language. So this is, let's say, the traditional workflow for dubbing, okay? So we have the initial translation of a script from source to target language. Just a translation, okay, which is done by a translator. Then the translator passes this work, this translation, to another person who is called the adapter. So these are two different figures, two different jobs. Then we have adaptation, where the script is adapted for lip sync and cultural considerations. So it's different. It's a different job. The first one is done by the translator. Then we have the adapter. The adapter is not a translator, not always. I know many adapters which do not have degrees in languages or translation. They do something else, okay? Because they already receive the translated text, so they don't need to know the source language, okay? They need to adapt the translation for the screen. So they need to take into account cultural considerations, the lip sync, so the movements of the lips of screen, and something else. Then segmentation. The dialogues are divided, the script is divided into takes for recording the dubbing and recording. So voice actors, dubbers, perform. They dub the movie, the product, under the direction. We have a director of dubbing, and they create a new soundtrack for the film. And there is quality control, so a final review of the work done. So a final review that ensures all dialogue is translated and meets the standards, of course. Okay, so of course, yeah, sometimes we can have an intralingual dubbing. So dubbing can occur without language change. For example, they can just replace accented speech, or they just can improve audio quality, okay, to fix technical issues, for example. Okay, this is the automated dialogue replacement or the accent replacement. Hmm? And then we have also same actor dubbing. So we have actors that speak many languages and they record their own lines in different languages. So it can happen, of course. An actor that dubs himself or herself. Okay. And this is the dubbing process, okay, which we already saw. So we have the commissioning, first of all, of the job. So the distributor of the movie hires a language service provider or a dubbing studio, which does the work. Then the translation. So initial translation of the script from source to target language. Then this translation is adapted and adjusted for lip sync and cultural context, the recording and the sound engineering. So all the technical adjustments to match original timing and sound quality. Yes, we have this so-called band ritmo. It is a term loaned from French dubbing, which refers to the scrolling text that moves from right to left in synchronization with the source language utterances, so that voice artists have a clearer visual cue than if they were reading from a lectern or when to begin each of their utterances. So whether the dialogues are shown in Ritmoband or not, adaptation generally takes place in a digital word processing document or directly in a cloud dubbing tool. Synchrony in audiovisual translation. Of course, synchrony is very important in dubbing. As regards preparing the script for dubbing, there are several types of synchrony necessary to bear in mind. But they can broadly be broken down into three: isochrony, lip sync, and kinesic synchrony. Isochrony is the synchronization of utterance length or duration, meaning that the dub dialogue begins and ends at the same moment as the character on screen starts and stops talking, laughing, or whatever the oral paralinguistic expression. Lip sync consists of adapting the translation to the visible article. Oh, I don't know what happens. Sorry. Okay. Lip sync means adapting the translation to the articulatory movements of the characters' mouths, okay, to especially in close-ups, okay? So when the camera is near, we need to pay attention to lip sync, okay? When characters appear off screen, so we don't see them, both lip sync and isochrony dubbing are no longer such pressing priorities, okay? And the former can be just ignored, okay? So, and kinesic synchrony, also called kinetic synchrony, is about achieving complementarity between the words and related body language. For instance, ensuring voice actors produce oral, nonverbal, or paralinguistic expressions like painting, shouting, grunting, mumbling, etc. Okay, so a standard priority is that the dubbing performances should match the physicality of the screen actors. Okay, so in lip sync, as I already said, we need to say that some articulations are prioritized when adjusting wording for lip sync. So bilabials, first of all, because when lips meet and mouth is closed, these are the most noticeable to viewers. So they will see that there is a difference, okay, in the language, that is not the original language. Bear in mind that, okay, when we watch an American movie, for example, a movie that originally was in English, and now I watch in Italian, of course, I know that it is dubbed. I know that that movie was not in Italian originally. I know that Brad Pitt is not Italian and doesn't speak Italian. But if the translation is done very well, I forget it. I just watch the movie and enjoy the movie, forgetting that Italian is not the original language of the movie. Why? Because the translation is done very well and it creates the so-called suspension of disbelief. So making me think that that movie was created in that language. Okay, so we need to pay attention to these factors. Okay, then we have the labiodentals, the open vowels, so when they open their mouth wide, and the dental fricatives. So we need to pay attention to all of these characteristics. Then we have, yes, dubbing notations, because sometimes the adapters, screen adapters, insert special notes to guide the voice actors, the dubbers, and sound engineers. So, for example, they indicate the character positioning. So they indicate if the character is in front, profile, back, etc. The voice provenance. So if the voice comes from beyond the shot, or as a narration, or off screen, and so on. The paralinguistic expressions. So they mark all the nonverbal sounds like laughter, crying, coughing, and also the background chatter. So indicates an undecipherable background conversation, for example. And WALLA, it's a notation used by script adapters to indicate this characteristic. Okay, when we do not understand what is said in the background. Okay, so they just put this note so that the voice actors know that there is an undecipherable voice. What is very important in dubbing is selecting the appropriate voice types to match characters. So voice casting is an actual casting, just like if you are choosing an actor for a movie, it's the same. The performance, delivery. So because they are actors, actually, they do not just read the translated dialogue. They have to perform, the actors. The synchrony features are very important, as we already said. The script coherence, so how a character is portrayed, the orality, the narrative structure, and the translation itself, the meaning, the content, the effect from source to knowledge. We have some alternative dubbing environments because we do not just dub films, okay? There are other dubbing environments. So the standard one is for feature film, but we have, for example, video game dubbing, which differs from dubbing proper to such an extent that defining it as dubbing is often challenged. First of all, the translation tends to be carried out in absence of an audiovisual text. The translation can be used both for recording dialogues and for creating subtitles, whereas for films, the process for dubbing and for subtitling is different. Okay, for video games, to save money, they do the same process. Also, there is no formal adaptation stage for video game dubbing. Instead, the dubbing director may make convenient changes in the studio for priorities such as orality, lip sync, or isochrony. So there is no separation of the script into different loops, as the dialogues are not linear, because of the fundamentally interactive nature of the game. Fan dubbing. In fan dubbing, let's say they veer away from traditional dubbing in various ways, in both process and product. A characteristic shared by both of these types of dubbing, which differ from dubbing properly, is that they do not tend to be commissioned professionally. Okay, they are undertaken by individuals and collectives, which can be made up of amateur or professionally trained voice actors. Okay, so they are not official translations. They are translations created by fans, in the case of fan dubs. In the case of fan dubs, there is a comedic dubbing, okay, created for entertaining rather than translation purposes. For example, to mock some characters, okay, they create an alternative dubbing. Okay. Yeah, this is what I already said regarding video game dubbing challenges. Okay, so the content is not linear, there is no formal adaptation. And again, fan dubs and fan dubs. Okay, so this is just repeating what I already said. Okay, let's move to voiceover. Voiceover differs from dubbing, and in that voiced over versions have the source dialogue track playing at low volume, okay, accompanied by the translated dialogue, which typically plays at a higher volume at a lag time of a second or more. Okay, so some companies in the industry call voiceover this type unstyled voiceover. Okay, and the type of voiceover just described is an interlingual practice that is used in many language communities to relay dialogue in non-fiction content. For example, before I said that voiceover is mainly used in Europe, it is used in Eastern countries, so Russia, Poland. Yeah, it is true, it is used for films there. But for example, we use voiceover also in Italy, but for different products, not for films, because for films we use dubbing, but we use voiceover for documentaries, to translate documentaries or reality shows. So we use voiceover also in Italy, okay, but not for films. And so rather than having a cast of voice actors, this type of revoicing tends to involve a single voice. Okay, so since the source language can be heard in hushed tones and the revoiced dialogue begins shortly after the beginning of L1 dialogues, isochrony and lip sync lose relevance, of course. However, each revoiced utterance must not overlap with the next one. so that it is clear to which utterance the revoiced segment belongs. And visual verbal synchrony remains relevant in voiceover, but kinesis synchrony more broadly and paralinguistic expressions are usually reduced or even eliminated, depending on the genre of text. Simul-sync is a different type of voiceover from the just described. In that, like dubbing, it upholds synchrony, isochrony. So like voiceover proper, it does not respect lip sync, and the source language dialogues can be heard in the background. However, the revoiced dialogues are placed isochronously rather than after the source language dialogues. Furthermore, voiceover and simul-sync sometimes use just one voice throughout, or one male and one female voice, or at least notably few voices by comparison with dubbing. And then we have audio description. Audio description is often placed under the hypernym of revoicing, although a case can be made for the fact that it is a first instance of voicing. It does, however, involve a reformulation of the visuals in the audiovisual text, and audio description involves a set of new verbal utterances being added to the audio channel, describing the visuals for the benefit of people who are blind or partially sighted. The audiovisual scripts, therefore, constitute the rewriting of non-verbal visual AV elements and any on-screen writing to verbal utterances or interpretation of visual elements through revoicing, normally in between the spoken dialogues, which remain the same as the dubbed version when done in the context of a foreign language version. It is important for audio describers to bear in mind that most visually impaired or blind people are born with sight and may experience deterioration in their sight in youth or adulthood due to a degenerative condition, for example, or later in life as part of aging. So these members constitute that constitute the majority of the audience might be familiar with many of the visual realities described. Okay, because they remember, even if now they are blind, probably they were born with sight, so they remember colors, they remember images. And so the language used by describers is also informed by the target audience and its envisaged age group, as the descriptions must be accessible and intelligible to its end users. So the content is often indicative of the likely demographics of viewers. And the genre also dictates the tone during revoicing. And it is interesting to note that audio describers tend to write and perform their own scripts, unlike the separation between scripts adapters and voice actors in dubbing. And audio guides. Audio guides in museums and cultural institutions, galleries, can be likened to audio description insofar as they convey visual content through an audio channel. So the physical description of an artwork or artifact is described in audio guides, and context in relation to the artist is often provided as well, which usually mirrors the plaque that scene visitors read next to the piece. So it is a case of rewriting from the source language visual written mode to the target language oral mode or perception, assuming that the written version comes first, in light of the fact that the visual content is generally not on the screen, but it is a physical object. What ensues is an audio translation of a visual object. And some audio guides may function as surrogates of human guides who would also communicate mostly orally. Okay. Now we pass to subtitling. We see all the modes that regard dubbing, so the audio mode. Now we will see subtitling, so all what it is written. Hmm? So subtitles are nearly always placed at the bottom of the image or even beneath the image. And their main priority is to be inconspicuous, so they must be visible yet in the margin, and the bottom margin makes sense for writing systems that are read horizontally. We can say that subtitles refer to the margin, in the margin, be it right, left, or bottom. So when the margin is above the action on stage, usually, they are called surtitles, because they are put above, and they are used, for example, in theaters for the translation of opera. You know, there are operas that are sang, for example, well, in Italy we have a tradition of opera, classical music, but there are many opera that are sang in German, for example, and in this case, in Italian theaters, we have surtitles. So if you go to theater, you have surtitles in Italian so that you can understand what they are singing. The synchrony that is most important in subtitling can be likened to isochrony, so that the target text subtitles appear at the same time as the corresponding source language utterance. And by this criterion, no target language subtitles should appear when there are no words in the source language to be heard or read. And setting the precise sync times of subtitles is called spotting. And there are other technical factors to be considered. Subtitling norms stipulate a minimum of 1 second and a maximum of 7 seconds per subtitles. If there is a dense conversation over more than a second, the subtitle must break the sub-dialogues up into 6-second segments or less. And in doing so, might need to create more target text sentences than in the source language conversation, or else to end subtitles in unfinished sentences and begin the next subtitle with continued sentences. Client style guides often dictate which approach is taken by the subtitler. Rewriting according to certain criteria for creating segments of speech is called segmentation. Within segmentation is a related convention called line breaks. And this norm dictates when to jump down to the second line of the title instead of waiting until reaching the maximum number of characters per line before pushing the text downwards. For characters per line, a limit is stipulated in different style guides. For example, Netflix establishes a limit of 42 characters per line for English, and many other languages that use Roman alphabets. And for languages using characters like Japanese, it's composed of, there is a maximum of 13 characters per line, if read horizontally, or 11 if it appears vertically. Okay. Okay, so this is the subtitle technical process. So the spotting, individuating the where to put the subtitles, then divide them, line breaks, and truncation, which is one of the most challenging tasks for a subtitler, which means shortening the turns of speech. And this shortening can be achieved by rephrasing, paraphrasing, contractions in certain languages, use of Arabic numerals instead of spelling numbers out, swapping in of shorter synonyms, removal of repetition and hesitations, and removal of intensifiers and vocatives, to name some key strategies. And in order to maximize the readability of subtitles, stylistics are often recommended. So examples include the use of italics, limited solely to indicate off-screen voices, and speech coming through the device, song lyrics, and long words from another language. Also, italics for off-screen voices or lyrics are helpful in allowing the viewer to take notice of the different font and to associate it with speakers who are out of view. Okay, so this is what I already said. So also the alignment. So usually subtitles are center aligned. These are the strategies I mentioned before. So the use of Arabic numbers, so using the number instead of 7 spelled out. The use of contractions, avoiding repetitions, to shorten, to condense the subtitle. Okay, free-form subtitles. So when subtitles veer away from the established conventions or norms that I previously outlined, such as in relation to reading speed, character limits, or stylistics, these are called free-form subtitles. They have also been called creative subtitles, but the term is hotly contested, given the implication in this term that all other subtitling and indeed other translations would somehow be devoid of any creativity and, by extension, authorship for the translator. And an example of this freestyle sort of subtitling can be observed in the film Arrival, whose English subtitles on Netflix used 3 lines, three-liner subtitles, left alignment, and moved subtitling positioning close to wherever on the screen the speaker might be. So it was very unconventional. 3 lines, left align, which is usually center. Usually we have 1 or 2 lines. So this is a good example. Another example of free-form subtitling appears in video games, in which there are often more than 2 lines. So many characters appear on screen that they might span the width of the screen, which may add to the subs often being a verbatim portrayal. So, to the points raised in relation to dubbing, that a translator may or may not also adapt the script for dubbing, and the point in relation to AD, that audio describers do that tend to write as well as perform the scripts, there is a separation of tasks at play for subtitles as well. A subtitler is typically understood to be a translator who can do the spotting, so they set the time code of each subtitle and create the content of each subtitle in the source language, respecting the established rules. On the other hand, the translator performs the translation from the source language to the target one, often changing where necessary the segmentation of utterances, like line breaks, spotting of subtitles, for instance, not to mention wording and reformulations. So when translators can maneuver subtitle timing, they are said to be working in an unlocked template. Unlocked template means that timings are immovable. So the translator must not only pay attention to what is written in the L1 subtitle, as already involved an interpretation by the subtitler, but must also consult the video to inform translation choices or features like tone or mood. Okay, and here you have some a comparison between dubbing and subtitling. Okay, so you see the characteristics. Okay, subtitling, dubbing, we have a visual audio channel. In subtitling, we should have readability, segmentation. In dubbing, declamability, text division, isochrony, short changes in subtitling, lip sync, kinesic synchrony in dubbing. The process is kind of different. Of course, the dubbing involves a more dense process. Subtitles for the deaf or hard of hearing people. Subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing people, just checking the time, okay, are also referred to as closed captions. So these subtitles are not generally defaulted and need to be manually selected in order to be seen. So you need to select it on your TV. It is nonetheless true that many translation options are closed, especially on streaming platforms such as YouTube or Prime Video. So where SDH differs from standard subtitling is in its raison d'etre of communicating the entirety of the audio channel to the viewers, including the words spoken, but also other sounds like paraverbal features, sound effects, music, diegetic or otherwise. So a parallel can be done between audio description and subtitling for the deaf if one considers that they involve the rendering or explanation of certain nonverbal and paraverbal elements, and the decision are subject to how the film is interpreted on a global level and regarding its smaller components. So choices must be made about which sounds to convey, if only some can fit into a given subtitles. At a first glance, the most noticeable trait of SDH is perhaps the formatting. So a characteristic often associated with SDH is the color coding. The colors used have traditionally been white, yellow, cyan, green, red, and magenta, which is a type of purple. These colors were chosen as they are considered to be easily distinguishable from one another and clearly defined on dark screens, so we have a legibility. So different practices have availed of this. Also, we have sound tags. So sounds can be described differently for adults and children with different words. Okay, so for example, we might have a subtitle with a shouts. Okay, so that the person understands that the person on screen is shouting and so on. Musical notes or symbols can indicate some lyrics. Speaker labels, so names or identifiers to clarify who is speaking. Okay, yes, and this is the color coding practices that I already mentioned. So different colors assigned to the different characters. Okay, and the sound effects, so like door slams, phone rings, music that can be described, paraverbal features, and so on. Okay, so there can be a comparison between audio description and STH, subtitles for deaf or hard of hearing, because in audio description we describe the visual elements for blind, visually impaired viewers. In subtitles for deaf, we have a description of audio elements. Of course, in audio description, the focus is on what can be seen but not heard, and the opposite is subtitles. In audio description, you must fit descriptions between existing dialogues, and in subtitles for deaf includes dialogue plus sound effects and music. And audio description, the describers often both write and perform the scripts, while in subtitles, the subtitlers use tags, colors, and formatting to convey audio information. Okay, and yeah, one last category is the live subtitling via respeaking and subtitles. So with the self-explanatory term, live subtitles via respeaking are sets of subtitles created in real time by means of a translator respeaking what words they hear in the source language, whether that means rendering them in the source language or the target language. As with standard subtitling, the aim of these subtitles is to convey linguistic content and intention. So the translator or the speaker uses a program which they have trained with, speech recognition software, to recognize their speech patterns. They generally wear a headset, listening to and repeating what they have heard into a microphone, including information about punctuation. For example, if, comma, how are you, would be respoken as Eva, comma, how are you, question mark. Shorthand ways of indicating punctuation can also be fed into the program to take less time in orating. Respeaking is therefore often considered to bear resemblance to simultaneous interpreting, can be like a simultaneous interpreter. Respeaking is often interlingual, as the respoken words must be translated as an interpreter would do. And respeakers can also correct a mistake while a subtitle is still live. And as the words are respoken, they are picked up by speech-to-text technology and appear on screen one word at a time until displaying a complete subtitle. In the same way, paint on auto-generated subs appear on social media, which use speech-to-text technology. Okay, for which reason there is no punctuation present in such subs, and they often present mishearings as the freely available technology is not trained to the speaker. And subtitles, as the prefix suggests, appear above all the main area of visual interest, usually stage. What subtitles share with live subtitles is that they are displayed during live performances. However, subtitles are usually prepared in advance, as they are used largely for theater's performances or opera, and the subtitler has access to the script or libretto for the opera, so can plan the translation. However, they may need to change due to the dynamism of the performance, and timings may vary during each rendition of a play or opera. And the translation is often an abridged version, similarly to how utterances are truncated in subtitles. The subtitles are all cued and released manually during performances. So the parameters, such as the character number and lines per sub, vary across theaters and depend on the architecture of the building and room arrangements, such as to ensure that subtitles are always in view throughout the different seating areas. The sign language is a unique mode of AVT in that it does not fall neatly into either the category of revoicing or captioning. Sign language operates in the visual channel of communication and is geared at people who have been deaf since birth or a young age whose mother tongue is its sign language. There are varying profiles of sign language users. In sign language translation, the utterances in the audio channel are converted into sign language in the visual channel, which manifests in the manual articulation of utterances. And sign language is oral verbal communication with words being conveyed in gestures rather than phonemes. So it cannot be classified as a form of writing, be more akin to speaking with the hands and listening with the eyes. Sign language AVT usually appears in the lower third of the screen, so usually in an angle. But unlike subtitles, it is usually in the bottom left or right corner, as it requires more vertical space to be large enough for viewers to see the sign language interpreter's translation. And sign language translations are most often performed live. So paraphrasing or truncation of the message can appear frequently. And so here you have, just to summarize, comparing AVT modes by channel. So dubbing, subtitling, voiceover, the description, and sign language. Of course, dubbing and voiceover are primarily used in the audio channel, while subtitling and sign language rely on the visual one. The AVT modes selection factors, well, they are selected according to the audience needs. So target audience preferences and accessibility requirements. The content type, so the genre, the format, the purpose of the audiovisual material, the budget. Of course, budget is very important. The distribution platform capabilities and cultural factors. AVT in different media. We saw the differences between cinema, streaming platforms, video games. So as I said, technology is evolving. Now we have streaming platforms. 20 years ago, we didn't have streaming platforms. So it is very different. And of course, the AVT modes are changing. So we have a technological evolution in AVT. We have the traditional methods, traditional film editing. Then we have the digital revolution with the digital editing tools, subtitling softwares, improved synchronization, cloud-based tools. Today we have cloud-based tools for subtitling. So that we have a remote collaboration between the different translators, and also the integration of artificial intelligence, of course, machine translation, automated speech recognition, and synthetic voices. So these are emerging AVT modes. Artificial intelligence generated dubbing, extended reality subtitling, user customizable subtitle appearance, reading speeds, audio options, multimodal translation, so combining multiple AVT modes. And again, as we said before, there's more selection by content type. So according to the content type, the feature films, documentaries, news, reality TV. So we need to select the right mode and according to the content type. The different professional figures, the subtitler, dubbing director, the audio describer. So we have different people involved, not just the translator. So you see how many people, the technicians, sound technicians, sound engineers are involved in this process. So what the future might be. Audiovisual translation continues to evolve with technology and changing viewers' expectations because audiences are changing. And so their expectations change. So we have an increased accessibility. Now we pay attention a lot to accessibility. The integration of artificial intelligence, so machine learning improving, user customization, and new media forms. So we have translation approaches that adapt to emerging technologies and to interactive media. So you see that we need to always keep pace with the evolution of new technologies, the evolution of the audiences, and the evolution of contents. Okay, so all the different contents and the different platforms used. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much. That's really interesting.
I prepare this because I know that for you it's Ramadan, so I tried
Yeah,
to
thank
find
you
an
so much.
image.
Wow. Okay. Where is the audience? Hello, audience. I think this is very interesting. I am really new in translation, but this is really um, open my eye on what is translation is about. In my opinion, translation is about from language to language, but when talking about the audiovisual translation, it's so wide. It's so
Mhm.
you know
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, Especially when you talk about subtitle into very detail, dubbing, subtitle for deaf, sign language, technological technological evolution or on IVT. I believe here the students of translation, some students I think are going to have questions. Here we have Ishraf Sharif Al Qadri. He is very critical student. um, he has a lot of ideas, and seeing this wide range of what translation is about, I think a lot of students here are going to have some questions, and of course I also have questions, and I think but I think I have to give the chance to the student to ask some questions here. um, Let me speak Bahasa Indonesia a little bit, because I believe some of them I don't really understand what it's about. Uh, ini tentang, uh, pemahaman saya tentang translation sebelumnya adalah memindahkan bahasa ke bahasa, dan ternyata translation itu tidak sederhana. Itu sangat kompleks, apalagi sudah berhubungan dengan AI. So, saya percaya ini akan menginspirasi banyak hal yang kita observasi juga di Indonesia kan, tentang subtitle, tentang audiovisual. Oleh karena itu, silahkan meninggalkan pesan di chat room. Jika ada pertanyaan, I will help you to translate into English jika kamu will menggunakan bahasa Indonesia. Bagi yang ingin bertanya lebih langsung, dengan langsung, silahkan. Di sini juga ada Pak Sukri. Pak Sukri biasanya punya pertanyaan yang kompleks. Probably you will, raise some question too. And Ibu Helmi is now writing her dissertation on translation. Also, I think got a lot of, I'm so curious about a lot of things here. But I will give the chance to the student first, and after that, I will give the chance to the lecturer. Okay, siapa yang mau bertanya? Any questions, students? Farid, do you have some questions? Ayo bertanya. Tinggalkan, okay. Here we have from Amira Paradiba.
Is it
In
true? Some.
ah,
Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, can I
Sorry,
answer to what?
directly answer.
So yes, this is a very important issue. I would have loved also to talk about cultural references, but of course, in 1 hour, I had to condense. Also, usually I deal with the English Italian pair. So of course, if you don't know Italian, it would have been difficult to understand. But yes, they are not translated well into other languages. Sometimes there are many strategies that can be used, many techniques. Uh, but then there are also some limitations. For example, there are some things that are culturally typical for some languages, from some cultures, and not for others. So it would be difficult to understand a joke. Okay, for example, for me, it would be difficult to understand a joke that is funny for you, and the opposite, of course. So, do they have the freedom to make changes? Yes, sometimes yes, they can, but in the case of dubbing, they need to pay attention to all what we said. So the lip sync, the gestures. So yes, they are free, but they need to pay attention to those characteristics. And in subtitles, they need to pay attention to the length of subtitles, to, you know. So I hope I answered somehow.
Mhm. Next question is from Mashkur Rauf. Mashkur Rauf, could you explain your question, please? I invite him to appear on the screen. Mashkur.
Okay. Yeah, this was towards the end of my presentation. Yeah, traditional paradigms. Yeah, in fact, some companies, some industries, the industry is changing. They need to change their rules to adapt to the evolution of technology. Now we have machine translation, artificial intelligence that are, invading our spaces, though human translation cannot be substituted at the moment. So we still need the presence of a human translator. So we still keep the traditional rules, okay, in the translation, especially in dubbing. But for example, in subtitling, now that we have automated subtitles, for example, if you go on YouTube, you have automated subtitles. And this is created by artificial intelligence, machine translation. So, of course, the industry and the translation companies will have to update and to adapt to the evolution. So thank you. This is a very interesting answer. And of course, I'm sure that in the future there will be many studies about the influence of machine translation on audiovisual translation. And okay, there was a continuous, it was continuing. Is it possible that it will eventually fully replace human translators? Well, in my opinion, if you're asking for my opinion, no, I don't think so. It is impossible. Now we use, of course, automated translation, deep learning technology, in many fields of translation. I do use some software sometimes if I have to understand something very quickly in a language that I don't know, then I put it on DeepL or other softwares. So they are useful, of course, they're very useful. But then there should be a phase where we have a editing by a human professional, by human translators. So otherwise, as you said, there would be an impact of translation quality. And I think that there would always have to be a human checking on the translation made by a machine. This is just my opinion, of course, but I don't know what will happen in the future. But I don't think they can be fully replaced.
Another question from Audia.
Multi. This is very interesting because it is one of my fields of interest, multilingualism and language variation. I did my PhD on that. So yes, We have the so-called L3, which is a theory made by Patrick Zabadiasco, who is a very important scholar. He's Spanish. Yeah, we have multilingual films with many languages there. And what happens? Well, it depends on the choices made by the producers, on the choices made by the translators. So, if they want to maintain this multilingual difference also in the target text, of course, they will have those languages spoken also in the dub text. And so we will have different dubbers. Different dubbers. Sometimes it can happen that, well, for example, that in an American movie, the other language, the L3 language, is Italian. And then you have to translate that movie for Italian people. Then what do you do? If you do that for Italian people, you cannot have then the distinction between the two languages because everything will be translated into Italian. Then what happens? Well, sometimes they just eliminate the multilingualism, so everything in Italian, or they substitute Italian with another language, like Spanish. I don't know, a similar language, so usually Spanish. So it depends.
Wow. Okay. We are close to the end. We have 5 more minutes left. So here, I saw one question, but
yeah, there was one, but then it disappeared.
Here we have Mem Sardian. Oh,
yes.
Yes, Mem Sardian Maharani Asnur is a lecturer for translation. She wrote her dissertation on translation on Islamic term. Okay, Mem Sardian, please.
Yeah, I'm really sorry because it's already late. I just got the very end of your presentation. I'm really sorry for that. But actually, I have read some articles about audiovisual translations, and but I'm kind of I never talk about audiovisual translation in my class because yeah. Anyway, I just want to go straight to my questions. So in audiovisual translation, translating the dialects that are emotionally charged or contain certain cultural nuances maybe or can be a big challenge, right? Sometimes expression that are meaningful in one language may be difficult to find an equivalent in another language without losing their meaning or emotional impact. So maybe you have an experience based on that. What are the biggest challenges in translating dialects like this, and what are the best strategies to overcome them? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, there are many strategies that can be used, again, depending on the translation mode. For example, we can replace a joke or a cultural reference with the exact correspondence in the other culture, in the target culture, or we can substitute it with something else, because probably maybe the original reference, the cultural reference, the original joke would not be understood in the target culture. So we should substitute it with a clearer, reference for the target culture. For example, if in the original one they mention a brand that is typical of that country, but then we don't know it. Okay, for example, they mention a French brand, and in Italy we don't know it. Then they substitute it with an Italian brand, just to give you an example. So this can be a strategy, or they can omit. Sometimes it happens. They omit the cultural reference with no reason usually, but they do. So
okay, so it's true that knowing the cultures of the speakers, the cultures of the speakers and cultures of the target language is very important, right?
yeah, of course it is important to know the target you are translating for.
We don't lose the humor that or the jokes that they say, just like that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Now it's 5:30 p.m. here. I think I have no question. I do have question, but we don't have much time. But I just want to say that from the presentation, what I see that translation is not only about language transfer to the other language, but it's all about technology. And then it's many things that we have to expand to study translation, and the field of translation lead me to imagination of a new technology in language laboratory. Yeah.
Yes, of course, there is a lot to say. It's not only language. It's about culture, background knowledge, sensitivity. Yeah.
Technology in how to make the transfer the language into in dubbing, and also about auditing in computer or something like that. So students, I think, can see the opportunity that how the translation will help them find a job after finishing the study. I think by conducting a research on that, and then by also doing interdisciplinary study with other from computer science, I think it's open opportunity to expand the study in the future.
Yes.
We have another meeting, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
On next week, then when
it seems that this afternoon here we have afternoon.
Okay, Ma'am Sandra. Hello, Ma'am Sandra.
Yeah, Pak.
I have just a little bit addition.
Okay. Could you
I would like first of all, I would like to say that very excellent, from presentation from Ma'am Giulia Magazzù. I think very inspired us for teacher also to teach about translation method. Actually, sometimes students difficult to when we come to teach about idiomatic translation. Actually, at the time, sometimes it's difficult to looking for the equivalent word from the original language, for example. Like Dutch, American, German, English, English American, or English British, or Australian English. So during my experience as a lecturer of translation method, when we come to teach about the idiomatic translation, so at the time, sometimes it's difficult to find the equivalence of words, for example. Difficult sometimes when we find difficult words, and then we try to this is a case of a student went to when trying to make accuracy translation text. I think that's my sharing according to my experience as a lecturer. Yeah, not only idiomatic actually, but also sometimes when we come to teach about adaptation translation, and it is kinds of what is, yeah, what to say, a difficult word, difficult task, how to make it accuracy translating based on the original meaning, the original. Sometimes we need, I think, sometimes we need logical meaning, how to, what is, how to translating from the source language to the target language, yeah. Sometimes we need, we need to pay attention about what we call as logical meaning here. What about that, Giulia? You think about this, about logical meaning beside the goal of translating from the subject language to the target language. But sometimes we need pay attention about what we call as logical meaning, or what is yeah, typical
About the
meaning.
meaning
Yeah,
of what?
typical
Sorry?
meaning. What?
About the meaning of what? I couldn't hear the word.
Logical meaning. Logical meaning.
Okay.
Logical
The
meaning
logic.
from the resource language to the target language. Yeah, sometimes it's
Yeah.
difficult to make it accuracy. Make it, yeah, right.
Yes, yes. You see, you need to keep the coherence and the cohesion in the target, just like any written translation, any translation that we do, be it written, oral, be it an audiovisual translation, the translation of, I don't know, a book or a document. We need to make it logical, make it coherence,
Yeah.
cohesive and coherent, the target text. So we need to apply all our knowledge and all the strategies that we know to keep the logic in the target text. I don't know if
Okay,
I
thank you.
properly answered or.
Okay. So, yeah, we need more actually time, but every time is limit for. Okay, ma'am, thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
members.
okay. Do you mind answer one question, please? There is a question, interesting question in the chat box about a quantity of a quality, because
Yeah.
yeah, I experienced that too. I'm watching a YouTube from Turkey, and they speak Indonesian. I believe she doesn't speak. He doesn't speak Indonesian.
What any others about the problem of our translation tax here? About when we try to equivalence from the source language to the target language, about the grammatical structure. Yeah, this is sometimes a difficult things I think well, yeah, even if from Italia, maybe Italia, yeah, with different grammatical structure. Yeah. Sometimes I think difficult things.
Yeah, of course, it depends on the culture,
Mhm.
there are many factors.
Yeah, I think like that. Actually, I hope the question come from the student. Maybe.
Oh yeah, there are already many questions from students. Yes, and another
Yes,
one
yes.
here is about the decline of translation because of the demand of industry.
Quality, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, there is, because, of course, today we need to prioritize speed, cost efficiency, as you said, over quality. So yes, there is no time. Well, in the past, in Italy, actors had like 6 months to dub a movie. Now they have 2 weeks.
Oh.
So you will see how you can understand how quality lowers
One
and
interesting
worsens.
thing that translation is also performers.
Yeah, everything. Translation performs everything.
Yeah. And now it's, machine transport.
Yeah.
It's
So
very,
that is why they also use machine translations. Yes.
it's become mass production translation.
Mm-mm.
But anyway, we don't have much time. We have to close. We are very thank you for you sharing this afternoon here.
Yeah.
And then
Thanks
it's
to you.
very inspiring. A
So
lot of
inspiring.
things happens. It's opened my eyes on translation and technology and things. And really, thank you so much for your time. And also, Pak Maskur say here, thank you. And I think we have to close this meeting. And again, thank you so much. Please come back again.
Yeah.
And please come back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then we will keep in touch
Giulia.
for the second one. And
Yeah. And next week we are going to talk about pragmatism, right? Pragmatism.
pragmatics. Yes.
Yeah.
On Thursday, we
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I would like to
Thank
close
you, Ma'am Giulia.
by inviting all the audience say Alhamdulillah and see you next week.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I close this. Ya, terima kasih banyak ya students. Sekarang topiknya mulai melebar ya. Banyak sekali yang bisa kita teliti di Indonesia berkaitan dengan translation. Terima kasih Mem Sardian, terima kasih Pak Syukri, terima kasih Mam Helmi, terima kasih Pak Mashkur. Maaf saya ada acara dan saya harus close this meeting.
Saya juga, Mem.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Saya juga ada
wabarakatuh.
acara.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Salam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Okay.